Warriors, Dawn of the Clans, Thunder Rising by Erin Hunter. Chapter 3. How about I give you a tour of the Hollow and the moors, Grayling suggested to Turtletail. He wanted to dispel the tension left by Toss Shadow's departure. You should get to know them again. Besides, he added teasingly, you might have gotten soft after living with two legs. Rude furball? Turtletail exclaimed, batting at him with one paw, though there was a glimmer of affection in her eyes. Okay, not soft, Greywing agreed. But come on, let me show you around anyways. The idea of being alone with Turtletail was comforting. I missed her so much, he realized. Now that she had returned, he could see the enormous holes she had left in his life when she went away. But as they headed up the slope out of the hollow, Rainstone called over to them. Can I come too? I'd love the chance to catch up with Turtletail. Of course, Greywing replied, though not without a pang of regret. I wanted Turtletail all to myself. But then he cast a sidelong glance at her and felt a thrill pass over him. It didn't matter. She wasn't going anywhere. There would be plenty of time to talk. And Rainstone is such a great cat. We're lucky to have her in the hollow. As Rainstone raced to join them, Greywing spotted a flicker of movement and saw Jaggerpeak emerging from his nest. Can I come too? The young cat asked. Greywing shook his head. No, he responded gently. Stay in the hollow and build up your strength. Jaggerpeak looked stricken at his refusal, his tail trailing on the ground as he turned away. Jaggerpeak, wait! Rainstone turned back and went to touch noses with the little gray Tom. When we come back, I promise I'll help you with your exercises. I'm sick of exercising, Jaggerpeak meowed, his voice shaking. It's so boring. Rainstone glanced at Greywing, who was waiting with Turtletail near the top of the hollow. I'll be back soon, she assured Jaggerpeak. We all will. Really, you're not missing out on anything special. Touching the young cat's nose again, she headed back toward Greywing. As they turned to leave, Greywing could feel Jaggerpeak's gaze boring into his back. That was kind, he commented to Rainstone. Rainstone blinked at him. I think we all should do more to help Jaggerpeak, she suggested. It's no good constantly telling him that he can't do things. You may be right, Greywing admitted with a twinge of guilt. Thanks for being so sensitive. The tabby cat twitched her whiskers. It was nothing. Three cats left the hollow side by side and headed across the moor in the direction of the river. Greywing reveled in the warm breeze that ruffled his fur and the scent of fresh growing things that wafted along with it. They passed a moorland pool where reeds waved gently and sunlight glittered on the surface of the water. As they were picking their way up a slope covered with gorse bushes, a rabbit suddenly darted across their path, its eyes wide with terror, to vanish into the gorse before any cat could try to intercept it. Greywing commented. Where there's a fleeting rabbit, there's bound to be... There she is! As he spoke, the rogue she-cat Wind emerged from one of the bushes, her brown pelt untidy and a disgusted expression on her face. Stupid creature, she spat. I nearly had it. Greywing let out a murmur of laughter. You must be getting slow in your old age. Wind slid her claws out threateningly, which amused Greywing even more. He knew very well that Wind wouldn't attack him. They had come a long way since their first hostile meeting, when Greywing had killed the rabbit Wind and her friend Gorse were chasing. As if Greywing's thoughts had called him up, Gorse appeared now, a skinny tabby shape, slipping out from the shelter of the bushes. Turtle glanced at Greywing, looking cautious and worried, as the cat stepped forward. Of course, she never knew the two rogues well when she lived on the moor. It's okay, Rainstone reassured her, brushing Turtletail's shoulder with her tail tip. Gorse and Wind are our friends. Greywing remembered talking to Tall Shadow a few moons ago, discussing whether it would be a good idea to invite the rogues to join them in the hollow. In the end, Tall Shadow decided against admitting them, but who knows what the future holds? Greywing asked himself. I won't say anything to Gorse and Wind now, but maybe in a while. How has the hunting been? Greywing asked Wind. He admired the way she would dive down into the tunnels to hunt the rabbits in their own burrows. She knew the whole network of tunnels that lay beneath the moor, and that might be useful one day. Wind gave a snort of disgust. There's plenty of prey, she replied. Hunting is becoming complicated. Why don't you say it straight out? Gorse demanded, with the beginning of a snarl. Clear Sky is refusing to let us hunt in the forest. Can you believe it? How dare Clear Sky tell us where we can and can't hunt? Wind nodded in agreement. The problem is, all the hunting ground around here is awkward now. One argument after another. Flicking her tail angrily, she added, "The other day I met a couple of other rogues, Thorn and Dew, at the edge of the moor. They'd never been exactly friendly, but we mostly left each other alone, and we were happy with that. But that day we ended up chasing the same hare. It was big enough to feed all of us, and there was a time we would have shared it." "That's right," Gorse put in, "but this time Thorn and Dew dragged the prey away. They threatened to claw our pelts off if we came anywhere near it." He shook his head in confusion. "It never used to be like this. Not until—" He glanced at them. Greywing saw Rainflower's tail begin to twitch, and she took a pace forward. "Are you blaming the mountain cats?" she demanded. Turtletail gave Greywing an anxious look, as if she expected a fight to break out. Greywing rested his tail tip on her shoulder. "It'll be fine," he murmured, hoping he was right and realizing that he would have to report this to Tall Shadow. Gorse's neck fur began to bristle, but Wind shouldered him away and faced Rainflower. "We're not blaming you," she meowed. "At least, not all of you." Letting out a sigh, she turned to Turtletail. "I know you, don't I?" she meowed. "Yes, this is Turtletail," Greywing responded. "She left the moor for a bit. No need to tell them she lived as a kittybug. But she's back now." Wind narrowed her eyes and gave Turtletail an assessing look. "I think she's okay," she mewed to Gorse. "Should I show you some of the best hunting areas around here?" she added to Turtletail. "You need to know. The times are going to get more difficult." Yes, thanks," Turtletail stammered, looking taken aback. It must be hard for her, realizing that the life out here isn't as perfect as she imagined. But once again, Greywing was impressed by how kind and friendly Wind could be, even in the midst of her own troubles. Rainflower obviously realized it too. "I shouldn't have taken offense," she mewed, blinking apologetically. "It's just that—" "Well, you're right that times are more challenging now." Wind twitched her whiskers. "It's okay." Gorse and Wind led the way toward the river, following a tiny stream that trickled along the deep cleft in moorland, a place where the mountain cats had never hunted before. The stream was edged with long grass and ferns that overhung the water. "This place is no good for rabbits," Wind explained as Greywing gazed around in amazement. "But you can generally find a mouse or two, or a vole, where the plants grow thickest." "Thanks for showing us," Greywing responded, enjoying the dazzle of sunlight on the ripples, the gentle gurgling around the sound the water made. "Why haven't we searched for prey here?" Wind stuffed with a snort. "You just have to know where to look. And now this way." Gorse leaped across the stream and scrambled up the side of the cleft onto the open moor again. "There are always a few rabbits around here," he panted as he waited for the others to join him. "You can see some of their holes over there," he added, pointing with his tail toward a steep, rocky bank with a few scrawny bushes clinging to the thin soil between the stones. Greywing tasted the air. Gorse was right. There was a strong smell of rabbit, and he spotted several piles of their droppings among the grass. "You're carrying some extra weight," Wind muted Turtletail as they set off again. Turtletail gave her shoulder a couple of embarrassing licks. "My kids should be here soon," she murmured. "Then you need some easy hunting," Gorse told her. "Maybe a nice fat pigeon that can't get too far. Let's head for the river." The rest of the cats followed Gorse. Greywing pricked his ears, listening for the weird clacking call that would tell him there were pigeons around. "Over there." Rainflower angled her ears forward, and Greywing picked up the sound of several pigeons though he couldn't see anything. "Stupid birds," Gorse muttered. "They don't know when to stay quiet." The cats prowled ahead more slowly. The moorland had given way to sandy soil and rocky outcrops, with tussocks of wiry grass and bushes here and there. Greywing still couldn't spot any prey until Turtletail halted and raised her tail. "Under the bush," she whispered. Greywing peered hard and finally made out the pinkish breast of a pigeon that was pecking at something on the ground between two boulders close to the edge of the river. "Your eyes are sharp," he breathed. "This is so great, hunting in a new place, and with Turtletail." "Yes." Gorse flashed past it, clearly unable to resist making the catch. The pigeon took flight with a sharp slick of its wings, but Gorse hurled himself at it and gripped its tail with its claws. 2 or 3 more birds broke out of the bushes, and he sprang and soared upward, well out of danger. Gorse's pigeon struggled frantically. One of its wing tips caught Gorse in the face, and he tumbled backwards, losing his grip on its tail feathers. Wind sighed. "I suppose I'd better finish the job." As she spoke, She raced forward and made a ferocious leap as the pigeon took off. Sinking her claws into its breast, she wrestled it to the ground again and held it until it stopped struggling. Turtletail's eyes were gleaming with amusement. "Do you think we should show them how to catch birds?" she whispered to Greywing. Greywing gave his head a tiny shake. "We might offend them, but we made cleaner kills than that in the mountains." Wynn looked up from her prey with a feather stuck between her teeth. "Come and share," she invited. Greywing, Turtletail, and Rainbow headed toward her, all three trying to hide amusement. "I thought we were supposed to be showing Turtletail how to catch fat, lazy pigeons," Rainbow admitted innocently. "Well, I've certainly learned something," Turtletail responded. And they were all crouched around the pigeon, taking bites of the warm flesh. She continued, "I'm glad I came back. Hunting has never looked like such fun." "Remember that there are tensions now," Greywing warned her, swallowing a mouthful. "What tensions?" A new voice chimed in. Greywing stiffened. Looking around, he spotted a silver-furred cat sitting on a rock in the middle of the river. Water swirled a mouse length beneath his paws and his elegantly curled tail. "Who's that?" Rainbow exclaimed, shocked. "What cat likes sitting near water?" The silver cat leaped neatly across a line of stones and climbed the bank until he stood beside them. He looked friendly and completely at ease. "Hi," he meowed. "My name's River Ripple." Wind and Gorse exchanged a glance. Clearly the newcomer was a stranger to them too. "Are you a rogue?" Greywing asked. River Ripple shrugged. "I don't like giving myself labels. I live by the river." He flicked his tail toward the opposite bank. "And that's all any cat needs to know. I'm Greywing, and this is Turtletail and Rainbow. Greywing began with a polite dip of his head, "and these two are Gorse and Wind." As he spoke, he noticed that River Ripple was only half listening. He was eyeing the remains of the pigeon. "That looks tasty," he remarked, swiping his tongue around his whiskers. Greywing snorted with amusement and pushed the rest of the prey over to the silver tom. "That was a pretty heavy hint." "Thanks." River Ripple bent his head and demolished the pigeon in a series of neat, rapid bites. "I've never seen a cat eat so delicately," Turtletail commented. "Neither have I," Greywing thought. "So elegant, even when he's hungry." River Ripple met Turtletail's gaze, then shrugged. "I'm a cat full of surprises," he meowed. He tipped his head to the others, then, with a flash of his tail, raced back across the stones and plunged into the undergrowth on the opposite bank of the river. Greywing and his friend looked at one another. "I think that was his way of saying goodbye," Greywing meowed. "I've never met such a strange cat." "Weird," Wind murmured. Before any of the other cats could speak, a series of guttural, angry noises sounded above the rushing of the river. Greywing felt a prickle of uneasiness and exchanged an alarmed glance with Turtletail. "What's that?" he asked. The noise came again, louder and closer this time. "Dogs!" Wind exclaimed. A rush of panic invaded Greywing, and he fought to stay calm. "We have to find shelter," he exclaimed. Even as he spoke, he realized that he had no idea where to go. "We don't know this place." Wind nodded. "You're right. Come on, Gorse. Let's go to our nest, quickly." As she and the tabby Tom slunk off down a gully, she glanced over her shoulder. "You better get back to the hollow as fast as you can," she told the mountain cats. With a flourish of her tail, she added, "It's that way." Greywing and the others had already risen to their paws, leaving the last scraps of the pigeon. They raced across the moor. Greywing would have liked to move even faster, but he had to match his pace to Turtletail. With her extra weight, she was struggling to keep up. The barking continued behind them. Greywing couldn't tell if they were outpacing the dogs. "Are you okay?" he asked Turtletail. He could hear her panting. "Yes, I'm fine," Turtletail gasped. "Pull ahead if you need to." "Never," Greywing retorted. "I'm not leaving you." Eventually the camp came into view, with Rainbow in the lead. They skidded down the slope. "Dogs!" Greywing yelled. More barking exploded into the air just behind them. How had the dogs been able to find their way here? Cold horror froze Greywing from ears to tail tip. "We've led the dogs straight to the camp. Our first chant has given us away." Tall Shadow, who was sitting on the tall rock at the far end of the hollow, leaped to her paws. "Scatter!" she yelled. "Take cover!" Hawkswoop and Jackdaw's Cry dived down the nearest tunnel, pushing Acornfur and Lightning Tail in front of them. Dapplepelt and Cloudspots raced up the opposite slope and vanished onto the moor. Rainbow thrust herself into a gap between two boulders. Greywing guided Turtletail toward his own sleeping tunnel and followed her inside, turning so that he could look out into the camp. Turtletail cowered beside him, their flanks pressed together. The barking grew louder still. Greywing's eyes stretched wide with fear and shock as two dogs shot over the lip of the hollow and down toward their friends. One of them was a rangy creature with a brindled pelt, and the other was small and white. Their paws churned up moss as they bounded to and fro, sniffing at the mouths of the tunnels. Tall Shadow still stood on top of her rock, her back arched and her fur fluffed out so that she looked twice her size. She was snarling. She had raised one paw, her claws out ready to strike if one of the dogs came within range. The small white dog pawed at the bottom of the rock for a few heartbeats, yipping in a frenzy, but he couldn't reach the black she-cat. Meanwhile, the bigger dog had found some discarded rabbit bones and was chewing them up. Graywing winced as he heard the bones cracking. The dog spat them out a moment later and began sniffing at the tunnel where Jackdaw's Cry and Hawk Swoop were trying to protect Lightning Tail and Acorn Fur. "Oh no," Turtle whispered. "Those poor kids." Graywing could hardly breathe with the tension, but he gathered himself to leap out and attack from behind if the dog looked likely to force his way in. The dog had begun to scrape at the loose earth around the tunnel mouth when another sound rose above the dog's barking, the roar of a monster on the distant thunder path. The dogs paused, their heads on one side, listening. Then they headed back up the slope, chasing each other as they retreated the way they had come. The yelping died away, but it was still many heartbeats before Graywing dared emerge, with Turtletail nervously following him. Tall Shadow leaped down from her rock, and Rainbow Flower emerged from between the stones where she had been hiding. Jackdaw's Cry poked his head out of the tunnel. "Are they gone?" he asked. It was Dapplepelt who replied, reappearing at the top of the hollow with cloud spots. "Yes, they're running towards the river," she reported, heading down to join the others. "We're safe now." They had a breath of relief. Graywing glanced around the camp, then his muscles tensed again as he realized the one cat was missing. "Thunder!" he exclaimed. "Where's Thunder?" He raised his voice into a yell. "Thunder!" His cry echoed around the camp, but no cat replied. "Who saw him last?" Tall Shadow demanded. "He was here earlier when Turtletail arrived," Rainbow Flower replied. "Has anyone seen him since then?" Tall Shadow's gaze swept around the cats, who were huddled together, scared and shaken. "No? Okay, let's search the camp, check all the tunnels." The cats scattered, vanishing into the dens and beneath the lowest boughs of the gorse bushes, only to return a few moments later. There was no sign of Thunder. Dread developed Graywing, like cold, clean fog. Thunder must have followed Shattered Ice when he went out to hunt, he meowed, realizing that the two of them were on the moor, invulnerable if the dog spotted them. Turtletail nudged him. "It's worse than that," she told him, her sharp eyes ranging across the hollow. "Jagged Peak has gone too.